from the usual match schedules and tactics to dive into a story that completely transcends sports. Now, this isn't just your standard comeback story about a career-ending injury. No, this is an unbelievable, cinematic journey of life, death, and absolute resilience. It's the story of a man who literally lost everything on a football pitch and how it changed the global game forever. Picture this. The atmosphere is absolutely electric. It's Denmark's very first game of the Euros, June 12th, 2021. We're 42 minutes into the match. Christian Eriksen, one of the best playmakers in all of Europe, he jogs toward the sideline to take a simple throw-in. There is absolutely no one near him. And then, he stumbles. He falls face first into the grass. Instantly, the roar of that massive, packed stadium turns into this chilling, collective gasp. For five agonizing minutes, right there in the grass, Christian Eriksen was clinically dead. Think about that. 1 million people were watching this unfold live on television, completely frozen in shock. No one knew if he was ever going to wake up. The broadcast captured this stark, horrifying silence that honestly felt like it lasted an eternity. All right, Section 1, 42 minutes in, the incident. Pure survival instinct took over. Teammates were literally screaming for medical help. His captain, Simon Kjær, rushed right over to clear Eriksen's airway. And then, the Danish team famously formed this protective human wall around him to shield his body from the stadium cameras. For 13 excruciating minutes, doctors performed CPR right there on the pitch. And honestly, perhaps the most heartbreaking detail of it all, his wife Sabrina was standing on the sideline, looking through the legs of the players, truly believing she was watching her husband die. It was sudden cardiac arrest. His heart just completely stopped. Now, in the business of football, this is effectively a death sentence for a career. When a player's heart stops, they don't play again. The physical demands are just too immense, and the liability, it's simply too massive. So the doctors saved his life, yes, but as he was stretchered off that field, the entire world universally accepted that Christian Eriksen, the footballer, was history. Moving on to Section 2, the medical exile. To put things into perspective, before the collapse, Eriksen was just 29 years old. He was a Serie A champion with Inter Milan, valued at roughly 25 million euros. He was living the absolute dream. But to save his life, doctors had to implant an ICD, which is a device in his chest that shocks the heart if it ever stops again. Well, Italy's strict Serie A rules state that you absolutely cannot play professionally with that device. Because of that rule, Inter Milan had no choice but to legally terminate his contract. Just like that, in an instant, his value dropped to zero. He was medically retired, uninsurable, game over. So what do you do when your life is saved, but your entire career is over? Imagine sitting at home. You've got 3 young kids asking if daddy is going to die. You have a wife who watched you clinically die on live television. The entire medical and football establishment is telling you to just hang up the boots. Walking away at this point wasn't just the smart choice, it was the safe, deeply human choice. Almost anyone else would have stopped right there. Brings us to Section 3, the lonely comeback. His reality shifted light years away from the bright lights and glamour of the Champions League. A single, silent video of himself just kicking a ball against a brick wall. He was paying out of his own pocket for independent medical teams and continuous private heart scans. And for 6 grueling months, the answer from every single club in Spain, in Italy, everywhere, was a flat no. The risk was just deemed way too high. He was like a ghost pushing himself through these rainy, early morning workouts in empty parks, with zero guarantee he'd ever wear a jersey again. Section 4, the miracle return. Finally, in January 2022, his phone rang. It was Brentford, a tiny London club brand new to the Premier League. Their manager, Thomas Frank, was Danish and had actually coached Eriksen years ago when he was just 16. Frank told him 4 simple words: "We believe in you." They offered him this tiny 6-month contract with absolutely zero promises. If his heart showed even a fraction of strain, the deal was off. Eriksen, he accepted the offer in about 10 seconds. Now look at this timeline, because it's genuinely hard to wrap your head around. Day 1, a fatal cardiac arrest on the pitch. Just 259 days later, he walks back onto a Premier League field. And then, the absolute peak of the impossible. Day 284. He puts the Danish national team jersey back on to play against the Netherlands. And on his very first touch of the ball, literally 2 minutes after coming onto the pitch, he scores top corner. Are you kidding me? It is one of the most cinematic, triumphant moments you will ever see in sports. And the universe just has a funny way of working out sometimes. For his very first game back for Brentford against Newcastle, everything aligned on a single number: 25. He was subbed on and played exactly 25 minutes. He touched the ball exactly 25 times. And when he stepped onto that grass, the entire stadium, even the traveling Newcastle fans, stood up and delivered this roaring, tearful standing ovation. In that moment, he proved that he was still the exact same maestro with the ball at his feet.
But behind the roaring crowds and the flashy podcast graphics is this deeply calm. His daughter looked up at him and asked, "Daddy, are you a superhero now?" And his response, "No, I just got lucky." I mean, really think about the weight of that. The man dies on live TV, defies modern medicine, scores for his country, and his main takeaway is just absolute humility.
Finally, Section 5, Changing Football Forever. His collapse forced the sometimes brutal business of football to completely wake up. Yes, he went on to play for Manchester United and even in a World Cup, with that ICD still visible under his shirt when he celebrates. But more importantly, leagues all over the world launched these massive, comprehensive heart screening studies. Defibrillators became mandatory, standard equipment at thousands of lower league and amateur clubs. The football world realized that players' safety cannot just be a line item on a budget, it has to be the absolute priority. His second chance at life is actively saving the lives of the next generation of footballers. Some victories really are bigger than trophies. When the stadium lights fade out and the cameras finally turn off, the most beautiful game on earth is ultimately about people. It's about resilience, humanity, and exactly what we do with our second chances. So, what's the greatest comeback you've ever witnessed, whether in sports or just in your own life? Take that inspiration with you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world.